Okay, so you've poured everything into building this amazing digital product. Could be an app, a website, maybe even a complex dashboard. You think it's perfect. But is it? Usability testing, or UT, that's the essential reality check. It kind of stops us from just assuming our design is genius and forces us to see how it lands in the real world. It's all about watching actual people use your stuff. It closes that huge gap between what designers, think users need and what users actually do, where they stumble. So our mission today, basically to give you a practical step-by-step guide. We want you to feel confident enough to ditch the guesswork and run your own usability tests, even if you're just starting out.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? So many people, they just want to jump straight into testing. They think, let's just, make the app better. But that's way too vague. You'll just end up with a pile of observations and no clear direction. Good UT, it absolutely has to start with really clear, specific research goals.
Right. No vague ambitions allowed.
Exactly. If you don't know precisely what you're trying to measure or improve, you're honestly just wasting everyone's time.
Okay, so let's build that foundation. Starting with goals. You mentioned clear goals, and I immediately think of the SMART criteria: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound.
That's the standard, right?
That's one. It forces clarity.
But here's my question. Let's say my goal is to know if my app is intuitive. That feels, well, fuzzy. How do you make that measurable?
Good question. You translate intuitive into something you can actually observe and count. So instead of asking, is it intuitive, you ask something like, what percentage of first-time users can successfully complete the checkout process without making any errors?
Ah, okay.
See, that's measurable. You track success rates, maybe task completion times. If, say, 95% of your target users breeze through it, then you've got data suggesting it is intuitive for them. You're measuring the result of intuition.
I see. Measuring the outcome, not the feeling itself. Makes
Yeah.
sense. So goals are locked in.
Yeah.
Next up, finding the right people. The casting call for your product. Exactly, the casting call. I like that.
You need users who genuinely represent your target audience. If you're building, I don't know, a specialized tool for architects, testing it with random students just won't cut it.
Absolutely not. And think about the range within your audience, too. A mobile banking app needs testing with young folks who live on their phones and maybe retirees who are newer to this stuff, perhaps less confident.
So diversity is key.
Crucial. And use screener surveys. They're essential to filter people in who match your profile and filter people out who don't. Like, you generally don't want tech experts testing a mainstream product. They often don't see the problems a typical user would encounter.
Okay, and here's something I think holds people back: the budget. They imagine needing hundreds of users, but the research suggests that's often overkill, right? Especially early on.
Totally. This is a huge point, thanks to folks like Jacob Nielsen. His research famously showed you only need about 5 to 8 users per testing round.
Just 5 to 8.
Yep. That small group will typically uncover around 80% of the major usability problems. If you test with, say, 15 or 20, you start seeing the same issues over and over. Or finding really minor edge cases, the return on investment drops off sharply.
So the advice is, start small, find the big problems, fix them, then maybe test again with another small group.
Precisely. Iterate. It's much more efficient.
All right, we've got our goals, we've got our representative users, now we need to tell them what to do. And this feels like another place where tests can go wrong designing the tasks. You draw a distinction between a simple test task and a task scenario.
Yes, a really important distinction. A test task is usually just a short instruction like buy a digital camera.
Okay.
The problem is people often just scan the page for the word camera, click the first thing, add it to the cart, and feel like they've passed. They're not behaving naturally.
They're just trying to complete the assignment, not actually shop. They game the system.
Exactly. They're not really using the interface the way a real customer would who might be comparing features or looking for specific specs.
So how do we get that more authentic behavior?
With a task scenario, it's more of a short story, providing context and motivation. So instead of buy a camera, it might be something like, you're planning a big family reunion next month and want to capture high-quality photos. Find a mirrorless camera under $800 that has good reviews for portrait photography.
Ah, I see. That forces them to actually dig into the site, use filters, read reviews, behave like a real shopper with a goal.
Precisely. It encourages genuine exploration and decision-making.
So when crafting these scenarios, there's a kind of checklist we should follow.
Definitely. Key things are, is it a core task someone would actually do with your product? Does it clearly state what the user wants to achieve, but crucially not prescribe how they should do it? You want to see their natural path.
Don't lead the witness, essentially.
Right, and use language your users would use, avoid internal jargon or technical terms they wouldn't know. And of course, make sure there is actually a way to successfully complete the task within the interface.
Seems obvious, but probably gets missed sometimes.
You'd be surprised. And one last tip here. Always, always pilot test your scenarios first. Grab 2 or 3 colleagues, or even just a couple of friends who fit the user profile loosely. Run the scenarios by them. If they get confused by the wording, you need to fix it before you run the real tests.
Good advice. Avoids invalidating a whole set of tests because the instructions were unclear. Okay, so we've got the plan, the people, the tasks. Now the logistics. How and where do we actually run these tests?
Right, let's talk methods and environments. Generally, any UT involves representative users doing realistic tasks while you collect data on their behavior and maybe their attitudes too. But how you do it varies.
Let's start with the different modes of testing.
Okay, 3 main modes based on moderation. First, moderated in person. This is the classic setup.
Yeah.
Facilitator and participant in the same room, often a dedicated usability lab. Great for detailed observation, picking up on body language, size, that sort of thing.
But maybe resource intensive. Needs a physical space.
Can be, yeah. Then you have moderator remote. Here, the facilitator and participant are in different locations, connected by screen sharing software and maybe video conferencing.
Like Zoom or Teams or specialized tools.
Exactly. You can still guide the session, ask clarifying questions in real time. If they get stuck, you can ask, okay, talk me through what you're expecting to happen there. You get that immediate feedback. It's very flexible.
And probably easier to recruit participants from anywhere.
Big advantage. The third mode is unmoderated remote. This is where software basically runs the test. Participants get tasks delivered automatically, and their screen activity, clicks, sometimes even voice comments are recorded.
Ah, so no live facilitator.
Correct. The huge benefits here are scalability and speed. You can test with hundreds, even thousands of users relatively cheaply and get data back very quickly, sometimes in hours. Plus, some argue the user behaves more naturally without a moderator watching over their shoulder.
Okay, faster, cheaper, maybe more natural behavior. Sounds great. But I feel like there must be a catch with unmoderated.
There is. It's generally much better suited for simpler, more straightforward tasks. Think finding a specific piece of information or completing a single linear checkout flow.
Not for complex stuff.
Right. If you have a really complex multi-step process, maybe configuring a sophisticated software setting or navigating a dense government form unmoderated often falls short. If the user fails, you see that they failed, but you often don't understand why. You miss the chance to probe their thinking. You need a moderator for that deeper understanding.
Got it. Choose the mode based on the complexity of the task and the depth of insight you need. Now, what about the where? We've touched on labs and remote, but you mentioned in-context testing too.
Yes, this is about observing users in their actual natural environment where they'd normally use the product. So testing a mobile shopping app while the person is actually walking around a busy store, or testing a navigation app while they're driving carefully, of course, maybe with an observer.
Wow, okay, that sounds like it could reveal things you'd never see in a lab.
Absolutely. Distractions, real-world constraints, multitasking, things that are part of everyday use but absent in a controlled setting. It gives you incredibly rich, authentic data, though it can be more challenging to set up and observe.
So we have different ways how to test and where to test. Does the purpose of the test also change the approach? Like, are we always just looking for problems?
Great question. No, the goal isn't always the same. There are actually about 5 main types of usability tests based on your research objectives.
Okay, let's break those down.
The most common is definitely problem discovery, which is often called formative testing. The goal here is straightforward. Find and understand usability problems so you can fix them. This is usually done iteratively throughout the design process, often using moderated methods. You're forming the product.
Makes sense. Find problems, fix problems. What else?
Then there's benchmark testing, or summative testing. Here, the focus shifts to measuring how usable the interface is against specific metrics. You might establish a baseline, say, users should complete task X with an 80% success rate, and then run tests periodically, maybe annually, to see if you're meeting or improving on that benchmark.
So it's more about measurement and tracking over time.
Exactly. And it usually requires a larger sample size than the 5 to 8 rule because you want statistically reliable metrics, tighter confidence intervals. Unmoderated remote testing is often used for this for websites, given the scale.
Okay. What's next?
competitive testing. This is where you directly compare your product's usability against one or more competitors. You have users perform the same key tasks on your site and on the competitors' sites and compare things like success rates, task times, user satisfaction.
Answering that, are we better than them? Question.
Pretty much, yeah, for specific tasks at least. Then there's learnability testing. This focuses on how easy it is for users to become proficient with an interface over time. You might have participants attempt the same set of tasks multiple times across sessions and track how their performance, like speed and error rates, improves.
Measuring the learning curve.
You got it. And finally, there's eye tracking. This uses specialized hardware to track exactly where users are looking on the screen second by second. It tells you what captures attention, what gets ignored, where people look when they're confused.
That sounds super detailed.
It is. Very insightful, but also quite resource-intensive and typically requires in-person lab testing because of the equipment.
Okay, that covers the main types. So we planned the test, got the users, designed the task, shows them the method. Now it's showtime, the actual observation. What's the key here?
The facilitator's role is absolutely critical during observation. Your main job is to observe, not to guide or influence. Let the user work through the task. Intervene only if they're completely stuck or need clarification on the task itself, not on how to use the interface.
Resist the urge to help them.
Exactly. It's hard, especially if you design the thing they're struggling with, but you need to see the struggle. Pay close attention to those nonverbal cues, the hesitation before clicking, the sigh, the furrowed brow, scrolling back and forth. Those are your gold nuggets of insight.
The moments of friction.
Precisely. That slight pause before they choose a menu item might mean the label isn't clear. Always record the sessions, screen activity, audio, maybe webcam, so you can go back and review carefully later. You'll catch things you missed in the moment.
Okay, observation done. Now we have all this data recordings, notes, maybe some metrics. How do we make sense of it all? The analysis phase.
Right, the detective work continues. You need to look at two types of data working together, the quantitative and the qualitative.
The numbers and the stories.
Basically, yes. The quantitative metrics give you the what. Things like task success rates, error rates, time on task. If only 60% of users could complete task 3 successfully, that's a big quantitative red flag. You know what the problem area is?
But not why.
Exactly. That's where the qualitative insights come in. You go through your observation notes, the recordings, maybe user comments. You start coding themes. Maybe you notice 5 different users hesitated at the same drop-down menu, or 3 people clicked the wrong button first. You identify patterns.
So you see multiple users struggling with navigation in a certain area.
Right. You group those observations into themes like navigation issues on settings page or unclear labeling for checkout button. This qualitative data explains the why behind that 60% failure rate.
And combining those gives you the full picture.
Absolutely. You use both to prioritize fixes. An issue that has a low success rate, quantitative, and cause visible frustration for multiple users, qualitative, probably needs fixing sooner than a minor issue encountered by only one person. You rank by severity and frequency or impact.
And this combination is also key for getting buy-in from stakeholders, right? Making the case for changes.
Hugely important. Your report needs to be more than just numbers. It needs to be actionable. Include visuals, maybe screenshots highlighting the problem area, perhaps even short video clips of users struggling, with their permission, of course.
And the user's own words.
Definitely. Pull out powerful quotes. A stakeholder might gloss over a 60% success rate, but hearing a user say, "I felt completely lost here, I almost gave up," that hits differently. It makes the problem real and human.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk about wrapping up. What are the common traps people fall into, and what are the core best practices to keep in mind?
A major pitfall is asking leading questions during the test. Things like, "That new button is easy to find, isn't it?" You're just confirming your own biases. Keep questions open-ended and neutral, like, "What are your thoughts on this step?"
Right. Don't bias the feedback. What else?
Testing with too few users can be a pitfall, but usually the issue is the opposite, thinking you need hundreds. But as we said, 5-8 is often enough for finding major problems per round. The pitfall might be doing only one round with 5 users on a very complex system and thinking you've found everything. Context matters.
And maybe testing with the wrong people, like only testing with colleagues or friends who are already familiar with the product or are too polite to give honest feedback.
Yes, definitely avoid testing only internally if you can. Another pitfall is ignoring the real-world context. A feature might test well in a quiet lab, but fail miserably when someone's trying to use it on a shaky train with poor connectivity.
So best practices to counteract these.
Test early and test often. Integrate usability testing throughout the development lifecycle, not just as a final check before launch. Catching problems early is vastly cheaper and easier than fixing them later.
Makes sense.
Keep your tests focused. Don't try to test every single feature in one session. Focus on key tasks or specific flows. And always, always prioritize the user's perspective. Your goal is to understand their experience, not to defend your design choices.
Simple rules,
Yeah.
but powerful. And the benefits, we've touched on finding problems, but it goes beyond that, right?
Absolutely. The most obvious benefit is a more usable product, which leads directly to higher user satisfaction, increased adoption, maybe better conversion rates. Happy users stick around.
And it's not just about nice-to-have improvements. There's accessibility, too.
A huge aspect. Good usability testing practices naturally uncover accessibility barriers. Making your product easier to use for everyone often means making it accessible for people with disabilities, which isn't just good practice, it's increasingly a legal requirement, like with the EU's European Accessibility Act. UT helps you comply.
So it impacts the bottom line and legal compliance.
And the really important message, especially for anyone listening who thinks this is only for big companies with big budgets, it's not. Usability testing is incredibly accessible today.
How so?
With all the cost-effective remote testing tools available now, even individual designers, small startups, or nonprofits can run meaningful usability tests without needing a fancy lab or a huge budget. The barrier to entry is much lower than people think.
That's really empowering to hear. So it's achievable for almost anyone wanting to improve their product. Okay, let's recap the journey. We started with the need for clear, smart goals. Then recruiting truly representative users, remembering that 5 to 8 rule. Designing realistic task scenarios, not just simple instructions. Choosing the right method, moderated, unmoderated, in-person, remote, or in context.
Then observing carefully, looking for those gold nuggets of friction.
Right. And finally, analyzing both the quantitative what and the qualitative why, combining them to prioritize fixes and communicate effectively with stakeholders using visuals and user quotes. It really is about gaining that confidence that what you've built works for actual people in the real world.
It is. And connecting this back to the sources we looked at, while these general methods for, say, remote testing are pretty well established now for the average user, there's a clear gap emerging.
Oh.
There's a real lack of specific, tailored guidance on how to effectively conduct usability testing with certain populations. Think older adults who might have different comfort levels with technology, or people with significant physical or cognitive disabilities. The standard remote tools and methods might not work as well, or might even exclude them.
That's a critical point as technology becomes more embedded in everyone's lives.
Exactly. Think about things like smart home devices, health monitoring, tech, telemedicine. These are becoming essential, especially for potentially isolated or vulnerable groups. So the next big challenge in UX and usability isn't just about building better remote testing software.
It's about adapting the practice.
Precisely. Adapting how we recruit, how we facilitate sessions, maybe the types of tasks we use, to ensure that these diverse, complex, sometimes isolated populations who arguably need usable technology the most can actually participate effectively in the design process. We need to make sure we're not just designing for the easy-to-reach majority.
So that leaves us with a pretty important thought for everyone listening to take away.
Yeah, something to really consider is, what concrete steps can you take starting today to ensure the product you're working on is truly usable and accessible for everyone who might need it, regardless of their age, their abilities, their location, or their technical competence? How can you make your testing more inclusive?
A vital question. Definitely something to mull over. Thanks for walking us through all that.
My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.